By the time you're taking this course, generative AI will likely look different than it did 60 days ago. With the mind-blowing flood of information and rapid pace of change, how do you determine what's true, what's accurate? Welcome to the course that will help you answer this question using the timeless critical thinking framework amplified by the ever-evolving technology of generative AI. This critical thinking Gen AI partnership will help you ask empowered questions, scrutinize information, and improve the quality of your conclusions. If you agree that the world needs more trusted sources for discerning the truth and making wiser decisions, this course is for you. When it comes to Gen AI, are you mostly a skeptic, a cynic, or neither? Ready to take the one-question quiz and find out? Imagine you hear about a Gen AI that offers to predict the next big stock market trend. How do you react? A. Interesting. Show me the data. I'll cross-reference this with other financial advice. B. Stock tips from a machine? No thanks. C. Tell me more. Is this how I become wildly rich? If you said A, you're mostly a skeptic. You're open to what Gen AI can offer, but with a grain of salt. You're going to keep probing, challenging, and asking questions. If you said B, you're mostly a cynic. You take everything about Gen AI not only with a grain of salt, but with the whole salt shaker. Your default setting is the eye roll and nope, I'm not buying it. If you said C, you're neither. You're all in, excited about the possibilities, and willing to take a leap of faith. So, which are you? Because this is a course for amplifying critical thinking with Gen AI, I'm here to make the case for skepticism. Skepticism doesn't assume the worst or the best. Instead, skepticism is probing and questioning to get to the best possible understanding. Skeptics keep an open mind so they can update their thinking based on good evidence. Skepticism is an active form of doubt. Critical thinking is biased towards skepticism because that inner skeptic is needed to find out whether that image you see, the article you read, or that video you watch is truly what it seems. This goes for all content, whether you're the one who creates it with your Gen AI partner or not. And get this, you can turn that skepticism back on Gen AI, asking it to help you and even second guess its own outputs. Cynicism? It's a passive withdrawal. It's a preemptive shrug that says, why bother? Cynicism can be a conversation stopper. It's often an armor we put on to protect ourselves from being duped. But in the process, it sometimes keeps us from the good stuff too. Being neither might mean you're open to the new experiences that Gen AI offers, but it could indicate a lack of critical thinking. If you just accept what Gen AI offers without a dollop of doubt, you could be in for some nasty surprises. So as you stand on the brink of your next important decision or conclusion, channel your inner skeptic and avoid being a passive receptacle of information. Instead, be an active processor, probing and dissecting what served to you. Let's go do this with Gen AI as your lab partner. At my company, Applied Curiosity Lab, we talk about good thinking being made up of 3 types of thinking. Strategic thinking, the chess game, looking several moves ahead and assessing risks and evaluating opportunities. Creative thinking, the idea lab, mixing different elements together to generate new possibilities. And critical thinking, the truth filter, and the star of today's show, questioning and evaluating information for reliability, relevance, and validity. You have to know the difference between these different types of thinking because Gen AI doesn't. And if you only tell it to think creatively or strategically, ignoring critical thinking, it can cost you dearly. It's up to you to tell Gen AI which way to think. Imagine you're planning to open a retail store in Northern California that sells apparel and accessories. You start by asking your favorite Gen AI, please suggest a successful strategy for the opening of my store and help me create the best assortment and most engaged customers. You tell it about yourself and your store, your goals, and you ask it to dig deep into online chatter and historical sales data, trending hashtags, and weather patterns. It suggests a strategy to capitalize on the anticipated demand for puffer scarves and oversized earmuffs. It also identifies an optimal time to launch. Next, you ask Gen AI to help you get creative to maximize buzz. It suggests launching a winter-themed event with a social media marketing campaign around the hashtag Cali Winter is Coming. It even suggests live streaming an ice cube art sculpting contests. Feeling confident? You place a big order for puffer scarves and oversized earmuffs, and you plan your winter launch. Your launch date comes and goes, and you're left with a store brimming with winter gear that no one needs and wasted expenditure on a marketing campaign that's now irrelevant. What went wrong? Critical thinking was missing. You lean too much on Gen AI's strategic and creative capabilities without scrutinizing the quality or relevance of the data or questioning the source or the local relevance. It turns out the hashtags were from a popular TV show and had nothing to do with actual weather patterns. And now you're left navigating a financial mess, all because you didn't stop to critically evaluate the assumptions and data your AI tool used to make its recommendations. You didn't pause to ask Gen AI any critical thinking questions like, how reliable are the sources you use to analyze the demand for puffer scarves and oversized earmuffs? Is the data recent and relevant to Northern California? How old is the data used that indicates a demand for these winter items? Are these trending hashtags related to cold weather in California, or are they tied to something else, like an online TV show launch party? Is the data relevant given variables like marketing campaigns, wildfires, economic or regulatory conditions, or shifting trends? After finishing this course, never again will you skip passing Gen AI's strategic and creative outputs through the truth filter. Gen AI can suggest seemingly brilliant strategic and creative ideas, but it's your job to make sure they're not built on a shaky foundation of assumptions and unverified data. You may be tempted to think that with its silicon smarts and data diet, that Gen AI is less biased than the average human fleshy intelligence. But here's the truth. It's only as unbiased as the data it was trained on. And the data it was trained on? Yep, it was created by us. The world's data is a messy closet of stereotypes and biases. So let's tackle the top 5 biases your Gen AI might be susceptible to. Then we'll use a decision like, should I get an MBA or should I open a food truck? And ask Gen AI to turn the mirror on itself to root out those biases. Let's say that your helpful Gen AI is advocating for the MBA over the food truck. The first bias to look out for is historical bias. Historical bias exists because data used to train AI includes texts from the internet, books, and other media that could reflect historical or societal biases. Turning the mirror on itself, you can ask your AI, is the information on MBA earning potential based on recent data from, insert the current year, or could it be influenced by periods where an MBA was perhaps more valuable? Do the career paths for the MBA you mentioned reflect current economic conditions, or are they based on historical trends? Representation bias exists because training data might not be fully representative of all perspectives or groups. So ask, do your statistics on the benefits of an MBA include perspectives from various demographics, such as minorities and women? When citing success rates for MBA graduates, are you considering people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, or are the sources you're referencing skewed toward a particular demographic or point of view? What about cultural bias? Well, if the majority of the training data is in English and sourced from Western or particularly American contexts, GenAI's understanding of cultural norms and idioms and values might reflect a cultural bias. So ask, is the data on MBA benefits primarily sourced from Western countries? How might the experience differ in other parts of the world? Is opening a food truck more or less esteemed in certain cultures? How might cultural perceptions be affecting your recommendation? Algorithm bias exists because although the algorithms that power your favorite GenAI might be designed to be neutral, the way they weigh different types of information could introduce bias. For example, more frequently occurring viewpoints in the data might be given more prominence. Here you can ask, in recommending an MBA, are you leaning heavily on frequently cited benefits like salary and networking, possibly at the expense of other valid but less discussed benefits? When dismissing the food truck idea, are you doing so because most of the data favors traditional career paths over entrepreneurial ones? Data drift bias can rear its ugly head when GenAI's training is frozen at a specific point in time, while societal attitudes continue to evolve. What might have been neutral and a neutral response on training day may become viewed as biased as perspectives shift. Ask your friendly AI, is the data you're using to recommend an MBA current, or is it from a snapshot when you were last trained? How might shifts in the economy or job market since your last update affect the relevance of your advice? Now you're armed with ways to make your AI confront its own biases. Stay critical. I promise that GenAI won't mind the interrogation. You're on the brink of making an important decision. Let's say you're deciding whether it's time to launch your next-gen trading card game. I've been playing a bit of Magic the Gathering lately, so this example is fun for me. In the last video, we talked about how AI can be biased. Now, let's check out how our own biases might creep in, and how you can use GenAI to expose and challenge these pesky brain bugs. Your data is in. It strongly supports your decision to launch your game, and you and your team are hyped. But here's the deal. No matter what it seems like, it's hard to know if you have a clear picture or if cloudy influences from your own cognitive biases could be leading you astray. We'll use 3 of the most common cognitive biases that impact decisions to show you exactly how GenAI can be your trusted ally to expose and challenge these biases. Let's start out by rooting out confirmation bias. Your research shows strong demand for your game, and play tests were off the charts. Sales projections are through the roof. Great! But wait. Could it be that you only found data that confirmed what you already believe because that was the only data you really look for? You're a critical thinker, so you know about the pull of confirmation bias that entices us to seek only information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore evidence to the contrary. Use GenAI to show you data or perspectives that challenge your decision to root out confirmation bias. Explain in detail all the compelling evidence that suggests that you should launch your game, and then ask GenAI, can you please provide negative feedback or contrasting views about our game that we may have overlooked or dismissed? Can you please provide data and analyses that show we're unintentionally favoring positive outcomes? This should arm you with useful disconfirming evidence, giving you a clearer picture of the evidence. Now it's time to look out for availability bias, which is when you're relying too heavily on recent examples that easily come to mind. For example, articles about the exciting launch of a new series from a popular trading card game like Magic the Gathering, or a viral video about a Pokemon trading card fanboy sensation can make it seem like everyone's excited about trading card games. Use GenAI to test that assumption and root out availability bias. Share details about your decision and the current events and trends that seem to support your decision to launch your game. And then ask GenAI, what long-term data and less recent events should we consider for this decision? Help me understand not just what's hot now, but the life cycle of similar trends historically. The answer will help you expand your view beyond what's trending now and give you a more holistic view. Once you've used GenAI to help you root out confirmation and availability biases, it's time to check for authority bias to make sure you're not accepting or valuing opinions from authority figures in the absence of good supporting evidence. Your game got endorsements from big names, but even experts don't get it right every time. GenAI isn't starstruck or easily offended. Let it objectively scrutinize those industry giants. Ask, can you please analyze and compare the track records of the following analysts in predicting the success of previous trading card games, highlighting any disparities or inaccuracies in their past judgments? Please share the names of authority figures you're relying on. Please share examples where widely recognized experts in gaming missed emerging trends or shifts in the trading card game market. Again, ask for names. Now, if the authorities you're relying on are not public figures, you can still ask GenAI, how might our game be susceptible to market dynamics that are unforeseen by industry experts? Critical thinking requires challenging your gut and making sure that the evidence you use to make your decisions are as free from biases as humanly possible, which makes rooting out our biases a great task for non-human intelligence. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, we're navigating a dense, overgrown jungle of ideas and information and voices, all competing to influence our choices and beliefs. For over 2,500 years, critical thinking has been our best way to cut through the dense jungle of information and reveal the path toward reliable, relevant, and valid evidence. But it's neither our default way of thinking, nor is it a way of thinking that smart people just automatically know. It's a learned skill. And while everyone can learn to think critically, there are even several excellent LinkedIn learning courses to learn from. It can be hard to remember the nuanced parts of it, especially while trying to make sense of the massive amounts of information. We're smart, but we're overwhelmed. That's why I promised you this framework, because I know how helpful it is to have an operating manual for critical thinking, especially one that's portable. You can carry it around in your brain. Enter PickPack, a timeless framework designed to pick apart your thinking and rigorously assess information through the lens of critical thinking. PickPack empowers you with the essential critical thinking elements and associated questions, so you can use it with GenAI to help you validate the accuracy of information and test different assumptions and simulate different perspectives, and check whether your evidence supports your conclusions. PickPack is an acronym, and here's what it stands for. P, purpose, so you can stay laser focused on achieving your objectives and to determine what you want from GenAI as your thinking partner, and what you don't want. I, information, so you can engage GenAI to assess the quality of information that you use to make decisions. Q, questions. I'm excited to share how Gen AI can help you empower your questions to capture insights that might otherwise be missed. P. Perspectives. I particularly appreciate how Gen AI can take the guesswork out of considering other perspectives. A. Assumptions. Gen AI can not only help you identify assumptions in your thinking, it can help you poke and probe at those assumptions so you can know which ones hold up to scrutiny. C. Concepts. So much miscommunication and so many bad decisions are a result of mushy concepts. You're going to use Gen AI to make sure concepts are crisp and clear before sending messages out into the world. C. Can rely on your conclusions. You'll learn how to use Gen AI in specific ways to help you distinguish between conclusions that are opinion-based, truth-based, and fact-based. And that's it. Those are your 7 critical thinking elements. Pick-pack. In the coming videos, we'll dive deep into each of these elements with specific actions you can take to use Pick-pack as your tool to pick apart your thinking using Gen AI. My friend Sarah was recently asked to join a nonprofit board faced with a big task: to decide on the future of a private school for at-risk youth. She knew this decision would be fraught with emotion, and she wanted to guide the board in making a decision that prioritized logic and reason. She suspected that Gen AI could help take the sting out of the process by offering a non-human way to prioritize critical thinking. And she was right. It can be easy to get caught up in all the exciting things that Gen AI is capable of. So start by identifying and putting boundaries around your purpose so you don't veer from your objectives. Remember Pick-pack? We're now tackling that first P by establishing purpose and setting purpose boundaries. When Sarah introduced Gen AI to the board, they were amazed at how helpful it was. They started to get excited about generating new programs and fundraising ideas, but Sarah was able to convince them to start by establishing purpose and purpose boundaries. Here's what Sarah shared with ChatGPT. We're a 15-member board of directors charged with governing a school whose purpose is to care for. We're a 15-member board of directors and putting boundaries around your purpose so you don't veer from your objectives. Remember Pick-pack? We're now tackling that first P by establishing purpose and setting purpose boundaries. When Sarah introduced Gen AI to the board, they were amazed at how helpful it was. They started to get excited about generating new programs and fundraising ideas, but Sarah was able to convince them to start by establishing purpose and purpose boundaries. Here's what Sarah shared with ChatGPT. We're a 15-member board of directors charged with governing a school whose purpose is to care for and educate at-risk youth. What probing questions would you suggest to help us make our purpose clear so we can then set boundaries? And here are some of the probing questions ChatGPT responded with. Which of these would have been obvious to you? 1. Who qualifies as at risk in the context of your institution? 2. What does care encompass? Physical well-being, emotional support, mental health services? 3. What educational outcomes are you aiming for? 4. How long do you intend to support each child? 5. How will you measure the success of your programs? 6. What's the maximum number of children you can effectively support at any given time? The board was able to answer many of these questions, and other questions led to constructive debates, like the debate over who qualifies as at risk in the context of the school. Again, Sarah suggested that ChatGPT help answer this question, so she asked, please provide a concise list of specific criteria to help determine which children qualify as at-risk youth in need of our school services. The criteria should allow for objective assessment and avoid biases. ChatGPT came up with a list of criteria for the board to consider, things like socioeconomics, family dynamics, health, behavior, housing, and the availability of role models. The board worked hard to clearly address all of the questions and came up with the following purpose statement. Our institution is committed to serving children aged 6 to 18 who are identified as at risk due to socioeconomic hardships, exposure to crime, or lack of stable guardianship. Our comprehensive care extends beyond traditional education, providing physical well-being checks, emotional support through dedicated counselors, and periodic mental health assessments. We strive for educational outcomes that ensure a minimum of an 80% high school graduation rate, with support systems in place to aid each child for up to 12 years. The success of our programs will be gauged by consistent yearly advancement in education levels, marked improvements in emotional and mental well-being, and the successful integration of at least 70% of our students into higher education institutions or vocational programs post-graduation. We will support no more than 30 students at a time, and over the next decade, we aim to see a 10% increase in our high school graduation rates and a 20% increase in post-program integration. Now, the clearer the purpose statement, the easier it is to set purpose boundaries. To set boundaries, Sarah copied and pasted the purpose statement into ChatGPT and asked, "Can you please create a purpose boundary statement so the board does not veer from this purpose?" Let's see what it came up with. To maintain the integrity and effectiveness of our mission, all board discussions, decisions, and actions must align with our clearly defined commitment to our at-risk students aged 6 to 18. Proposals or initiatives that aim to either dilute our comprehensive care model or divert resources from our core objectives, namely holistic well-being, achieving a minimum of 80% high school graduation rates, and supporting successful post-graduation integration, will be considered out of bounds. Furthermore, any suggestion to exceed our capacity of 30 students at any given time, or actions not in line with our 10-year projected growth in graduation and integration rates, will not be entertained. Our focus is unwavering, and any venture outside these parameters risks compromising the quality and intention of our purpose. So think about a decision as you're progressing through this course. Use GenAI to help you clearly create a purpose statement. Then share that purpose with your favorite GenAI and ask it to create purpose boundaries. Here's a bonus tip. Later, if you have an issue and you're wondering if it's within your purpose boundaries, ask GenAI. Experts estimate that 90% of online content may be AI generated by 2026. Now, if you're thinking, how do I know that statement is true? Who are these experts, and what information are they using to arrive at this bold statement? Congratulations, you're thinking critically. How do you know whether you can trust the information you rely on to draw conclusions and make decisions? That's exactly what this I part of PICPEC, information, will help you answer. Assess information quality by checking for RRV: reliability, relevance, and validity. Reliability asks, is the information trustworthy? Starting with, does it come from a trustworthy source? The source can be a person, organization, tool of measurement like a scale, or GenAI. It's also important to assess the reliability of the sources your source uses. Sometimes a source is unreliable because it doesn't provide verifiable evidence or facts. Sometimes it's because the source doesn't exist. We'll get to that in a minute. Relevance asks, is this information pertinent to my purpose? Does the information relate directly to my question, topic, or issue that I'm examining? To assess validity, ask, is this information accurate in that it tells the whole story? Your conclusion might be backed up by reliable, relevant evidence or information, but it might be leaving out a big part of the puzzle. Remember Sarah and her board of directors? Their purpose included providing emotional support to their at-risk students through dedicated counselors. Board member Malik provided an article from Horse Sense magazine in support of his claim that horse-assisted psychotherapy would provide the best emotional support. The board used Gen AI to determine whether Malik's claim was RRV, reliable, relevant, and valid. They suspected that horse therapy was probably relevant to their purpose because they knew of a horse facility that had counselors who work with horses to provide emotional support to foster children. The board assessed whether Malik's source was reliable using Gen AI in two ways. First, they asked Gen AI how to evaluate the reliability of Malik's source. And two, they asked Gen AI to evaluate the reliability of Malik's source. Not only can Gen AI provide your information source, it can also check your sources. But you still need to bring your own critical thinking to the project because sometimes when Gen AI provides a source, it can't prove its own source is reliable. It may not even be able to prove its own source exists. Sometimes Gen AI hallucinates and gives you unreliable information that sounds very convincing. And different Gen AIs enabled with different capabilities access different data sets. The board asked ChatGPT, "We're assessing a claim supported by an article from Horse Sense magazine stating that horse-assisted psychotherapy provides the most effective emotional support for at-risk students. Please evaluate the credibility, both the claim and the source." ChatGPT's response: "I found several articles related to equine-assisted therapy, but I wasn't able to locate a specific article from Horse Sense magazine in the available sources." ChatGPT then went on to offer articles from sources that discussed equine-assisted therapies. When the board asked Bard, Google's AI chatbot, the same question, this was Bard's response: "Horse Sense magazine is a reliable source of information on equine therapy for at-risk youth. It's published by the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship, a well-respected organization that has been promoting equine-assisted activities and therapies since 1969. The board wisely investigated further and found that Malik's source, Horse Sense magazine, was not reliable because it didn't exist. They knew that horse therapy was relevant to their purpose, so they were open to further evaluating Malik's claim, but they needed reliable sources. They asked Gen AI, "Could you please evaluate whether horse-assisted psychotherapy provides the most effective emotional support therapy for at-risk students? Please provide reliable sources that both support and challenge this claim." Now, validating a claim requires seeking reliable, relevant information that confirms the claim and reliable, relevant information that disconfirms it. Gen AI's answer provided summaries of studies discussing the effectiveness of horse-assisted psychotherapy and other therapeutic interventions for at-risk youth. Ultimately, there wasn't enough information to prove or disprove Malik's claim, so the board chose a 6-month trial of horse therapy with half the students and a 6-month trial of canine therapy for the other half. Test information using RRV so you arrive at an accurate conclusion. Think of your favorite sport or game. If you could change one rule to make that sport or game more strategic and engaging, what would it be and what impact would it have on the way it's played and appreciated? What about your favorite book or movie? If you could change one element or introduce one new character to make the story more engaging and thought-provoking, what change would you make? And how do you think it would transform the way the story is perceived and appreciated? These questions were inspired by Gen AI because Gen AI isn't just about getting answers to our questions, but it also involves getting questions that we can ask others. Asking empowered questions is the Q part of PickPack. Empowered questions meet 5 criteria. 1, they spark curiosity. 2, they're fun to answer, which requires doing a bit of research to know enough about the person you're asking to know what might be fun for them to answer. 3, they're evocative. They require thinking beneath the surface. 4, they convey interest. They show that the person asking is genuinely interested in a thoughtful answer. And 5, they inspire insights that benefit both the person asking and the person answering. When you ask empowered questions, it stimulates a deeper exploration of ideas and facilitates thorough and thoughtful analysis. This is central to critical thinking. Remember Sarah and her board of directors at the School for At-Risk Youth? I'll share how she used Gen AI with the 3-person executive board to create empowered questions so they could thoughtfully analyze their fundraising campaign. First, Sarah took time to get to know a bit about each of the 3 executive board members, and she found out that Rachel loved her job as a geologist and GIS scientist. Sal had a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and VJ was a voice actor. You have to make an effort to know a bit about the person to know what questions would be fun for them to answer and to show that you're genuinely interested in their thoughtful answer. After doing this, Sarah went to work with Gen AI. Here's what she shared with ChatGPT. She shared her objective. I'm helping a 3-person executive board generate a thoughtful analysis of a fundraising campaign for a school for at-risk youth. Then she shared, this is our purpose statement, and she copied and pasted the entire purpose statement. And she said that the ideas generated should stay within this purpose boundary, and she copied and pasted the purpose boundary. She shared, I want to ask each board member 1 to 2 empowered questions that will generate thoughtful analysis. Empowered questions must meet these 5 criteria, and then she typed the 5 criteria that you now know. She shared the information about each of the board members. And finally, she asked Gen AI to generate 1 to 2 empowered questions she could ask each of the board members. Let's see what ChatGPT came up with. For Rachel, the geologist and GIS scientist, in geology, the study of layers tells a story of the past. How can we utilize this concept to build a fundraising narrative that compellingly layers the stories of our students' past struggles, present achievements, and future potentials, making it irresistible for donors? For Sal, the black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, drawing inspiration from the discipline and resilience in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, how can we craft a fundraising message that embodies these values, engaging donors in our mission to foster resilience and discipline in our students' lives? And for VJ, the voice actor, VJ, as a voice actor, you bring stories to life. How can we use the power of voice and storytelling in our fundraising campaign to amplify the stories of our students, making them resonate with donors and compelling them to support our mission? When you're able to ask empowered questions, it can feel like a superpower. You'll foster active engagement with information, ensuring ideas and decisions are grounded in thoughtful analysis. You'll also make conversations way more fun. What do you think of this claim? Owning a pet significantly improves a person's mental and emotional well-being, enhancing overall life satisfaction and resilience against stress and adversity. Let's say you disagree and you go looking for evidence that challenges this claim, or you agree and you go looking for evidence that supports it. You'll find both. When you start with a claim and go looking only for perspectives that support how you feel about that claim, that's confirmation bias, and it's a powerful force. Critical thinking requires understanding claims, but if you only consider and expose yourself to perspectives like your own, your understanding will be incomplete. Seeking to understand different perspectives is a requirement for critical thinking, but it's been a difficult one until now. Welcome to perspective simulation, one of the most exciting critical thinking use cases for Gen AI, because the next step in PICPAC is P, perspectives. The idea is to simulate perspectives with regard to a specific claim. You can even simulate perspectives about an image or video, practically any content. I'll show you how Gen AI can simulate perspectives of critics and experts, supporters, maybe even perspectives that you would otherwise not even consider. We'll use that claim about owning a pet. Input the entire claim and ask, please simulate perspectives of critics, supporters, and experts. Consider a diversity of cultures, beliefs, nationalities, races, genders, ages. If there's a demographic that might have a unique perspective, share that too. Consider human and non-human perspectives. Here are some perspectives that ChatGPT came up with. City bird. Increase in pet ownership, particularly of cats, poses a threat to local bird populations. It's essential to consider the impact of domestic pets on wildlife and their habitats. Scholar from Pakistan. In Islamic tradition, cleanliness is crucial. While cats are generally well regarded, dogs are considered impure by some, which might influence the perceived emotional and mental benefits of pet ownership. NASA astronaut. In a confined spaceship, a small, low-maintenance pet could provide emotional support, helping astronauts cope with the loneliness of space and the stress of long missions. Futurist and tech enthusiast from Silicon Valley. Virtual and augmented reality technologies are creating immersive pet simulations that can interact with users in real time. These digital pets can be programmed to provide all the emotional support a real pet offers without any of the logistical challenges like feeding and cleaning or health issues. Gen AI can simulate perspectives of specific people. Say you're curious about your neighbor David's perspective on this claim about pets. The more details you share with Gen AI, like David runs marathons, is a chemical engineer, has a pet lizard, the more Gen AI has to go on. But remember, the simulation is not the soul. A simulated perspective doesn't completely capture the nuance and depth of real-life perspective. The idea is to help you think beyond perspectives like your own. Does Gen AI have its own perspective? Well, the answer isn't straightforward. It morphs with your choice of Gen AI, the diversity of its training data, and the ever-shifting sands of technological advancement. Like us, Gen AI can get caught making assumptions that can distort perceptions, which is why the next step in your PICPAC journey is to probe assumptions. Assumptions are sneaky because they're like guesses you don't even know you're making. They masquerade as verified facts. But with a sprinkle of Gen AI magic, you can unveil hidden assumptions and replace guesswork with evidence-based decisions. That's the goal of this next step of PICPAC. A, assumptions, specifically probing assumptions. I'll show you how our coaching client, Nia, used Gen AI to probe assumptions so she could make a wise decision about expanding her real estate business. Nia shared her decision and claim and then asked ChatGPT to unveil and probe her assumptions. I'm an experienced real estate professional thinking of expanding my business because, and this was her claim, business is booming, My brand is increasingly valued and well known, market conditions are favorable, and I've identified an underserved area that I could take over a significant share of the market. Please indicate assumptions and provide specific questions I can use to probe those assumptions. Here's a small sampling of what Gen AI revealed. Assumption: business is booming. Probing questions: is your increase in business a short-term surge or part of a consistent long-term trend? Does your current level of business success directly translate into success in a different market or on a larger scale? Assumption: brand is increasingly valued and well known. Probing questions: how are you measuring brand value? Through revenue, customer loyalty, or some other metric? What competitive advantage does your well-known brand offer that newcomers in the market can't easily replicate? Assumption: underserved areas present an opportunity to dominate market share. Probing questions: what specific data or metrics are you using to identify these areas as underserved? Are there current economic or regulatory differences in these areas that would require you to adapt your business model? Next, Nia used Gen AI to supercharge her critical thinking by combining perspective simulation with probing assumptions. She asked ChatGPT to simulate perspectives using the techniques you learned in the last video. Then she added this to her prompt. Based on the perspectives you generate, please indicate assumptions and provide questions I can use to probe those assumptions. I'll share two of the many perspectives that ChatGPT used to help Nia probe her assumptions. Perspective of a local resident. The expansion could lead to gentrification and not serve existing community needs. The assumption: expansion might lead to gentrification. Here's a probing question. What specific aspects of your expansion plan could potentially contribute to gentrification, and are there examples of similar expansions that have or haven't led to gentrification? Perspective of a financial expert. Expansion should be approached with caution. A detailed financial analysis considering market fluctuation and potential risks must be conducted to ensure that expansion is financially viable. Assumption: a detailed financial analysis is necessary for successful expansion. Probing question: are there successful examples of businesses in our industry that expanded without a financial analysis? And what strategies did they use to mitigate risks and ensure the success of their expansion? Gen AI encouraged a more nuanced and critical evaluation of Nia's expansion plan. That's the point of critical thinking. Use Gen AI to probe unchecked assumptions, and then you can swap them for considerations that have been scrutinized, questioned, and validated. Imagine a world where there is no confusion, where every word in every language has the same clear meaning from person to person. As useful as Gen AI is, this may not ever become a reality, but critical thinking values clarity, so that dream should be the ideal. That's why clarifying concepts is this next step in PicPec. Let's say you hear or read about a concept that you think you understand. Maybe it's sustainability or hardship or mental health. But a few weeks later, you read or hear a completely different interpretation of that same concept. Were you wrong? Are they wrong? Not necessarily, because concepts are like currency in a marketplace of ideas. The meaning of a concept is like the value of a dollar or euro or Bitcoin. It's determined by collective agreement. The value, as a currency or a concept, is boosted by our mutual agreement on what they represent. Not clarifying concepts to make sure there's agreement is like trying to trade in a currency that isn't necessarily recognized. For example, do we all agree what we mean when we discuss the concept of freedom. In casual chats, offering different views on freedom might be fine, but in crucial matters like legal contracts, health communication, policy announcements, and even social media, ensuring everyone has a shared understanding of freedom is essential for clear and effective communication. Before you engage Gen AI to help you understand the many facets of a concept, you should clearly know what you mean when you communicate using a concept. Then, you should check to see how others may interpret that concept, and Gen AI is great for this. Finally, you should clarify what you mean. Let's say you're considering sharing a LinkedIn post titled, "Workplace Freedom Fosters Creativity." Depending on who wrote that post and for what purpose, you might not share the same interpretation of freedom. So by sharing that post, you may be spreading an unintended claim, and this might be no big deal for an article like this, but it could matter a lot for more controversial concepts. We'll use the concept of freedom to show off how Gen AI can help you clarify concepts. Copy and paste the entire content, the article, post, slogan, and ask Gen AI to provide the definition of freedom in this case that's relevant to the content. Then, ask for different interpretations to reveal more ways the concept could be interpreted. In this example, Gen AI offered several interpretations of freedom, including autonomy in task management, flexibility in work hours and location, freedom of expression, decision-making power. The list of potential meanings of freedom, even in the context of work, is long. Once you have a deeper understanding of the concept and of the different ways it might be interpreted, revisit your own meaning so you're clear on your intended meaning. Then clarify it by crafting a brief preface for your content by using, "By that I mean." It looks like this. Workplace freedom fosters creativity. By that I mean freedom from task management. This will clearly guide your audience toward your intended meaning. Anytime you're using concepts to make decisions, draw conclusions, or share information, first clarify the concepts with the handy assistance of Gen AI, and you'll interact with the content in a more insightful and accurate way. This will help you avoid misleading others and misleading yourself. Are you ready to play a game with ChatGPT that will help you improve the quality of your conclusions and decisions? The game will test your knack for sorting claims into facts, truth claims, or opinions. This sorting is important because it's how you measure the strength of your conclusions and make sure your final judgments are built on solid evidence and clear reasoning. That's the goal of this last part of PickPack, to improve your chances at arriving at reliable conclusions. We'll borrow a case where a college basketball team's management had to decide whether to invest in a new training facility. They used Gen AI to sort their claims, improve their conclusions, and make a wiser decision. First, let's clear up common confusion about the difference between facts, truth claims, and opinions from a critical thinking standpoint. Facts are conclusions that can be verified and proven to be true or false. Truth claims are conclusions that some believe are true, but they require context and are subject to debate. Truth claims are often supported by evidence that's not universally accepted or verifiable. They require more investigation and scrutiny to establish validity. Opinions deal with personal views, beliefs, or judgments that are subjective, are not necessarily based on fact, and vary from person to person. With the training facility investment decision, the management team had claims to consider from potential recruits, coaches, sportscasters, college administrators, students, and fans. Okay, here's the game. All share each claim made by the team's various stakeholders, but before we see how Gen AI sorted each claim into a fact, truth, or opinion, you'll get a chance to do the sorting. Feel free to pause the video after each claim. Then we'll see how your sorting compares to ChatGPT's. Ready? Potential recruits. It's our belief that recruits would prefer a team with new facilities, as it seems to indicate a commitment to excellence. ChatGPT says this is an opinion because it reflects a subjective belief about what might influence recruits' decisions and what new facilities may indicate without presenting concrete evidence. Coaches. Historically, teams focusing on raw talent and coaching have outperformed those relying on high-tech facilities. ChatGPT says this is a truth claim because it's asserting something that could be proven with historical data but may require context, such as specific teams or timeframes being referenced. Sportscaster. Statistics show that investment in sports facilities correlates positively with a college's overall reputation. ChatGPT says this is a fact, assuming the sportscaster is citing actual verifiable statistics. However, the management team should verify the source of these statistics to confirm their accuracy and relevance. College administrators. Investing in top-notch facilities is the standard for leading sports colleges. ChatGPT says this is an opinion because what constitutes a standard can vary. Unless there's a clearly stated standard, it's not a measurable fact. It's an evaluative statement about what the college administrators believe to be a best practice. Students. Our college should prioritize academic improvements over sports facilities. ChatGPT says this is an opinion, reflecting the students' values and priorities. It's a prescriptive statement about what should be done, which cannot be objectively proven as true or false. And here's a tricky one from fans. The team has won 2 championships without a new facility, proving it's not necessary for success. This is a hybrid claim, part fact, part truth. The team has won 2 championships without a new facility is a verifiable piece of historical data. If the team actually won 2 championships, then this statement is a fact that can be proven with records. However, proving it's not necessary for success is a truth claim because it infers a cause and effect relationship that would need further evidence to support. Just because the team has been successful in the past without new facilities doesn't necessarily prove that new facilities are not necessary for future success. It's a conclusion that's contingent on many variables. How did your sorting compare to ChatGPT? Once you've sorted your claims into facts, truth, opinions, check your sorting against what Gen AI suggests. Then synthesize the information by doing what the basketball management team did. Number 1, prioritize facts. Use established facts as the backbone of your conclusion, ensuring it's grounded in verifiable and objective information. 2, consider the relevance of truth claims. Look at whether they agree with or question the facts, and determine whether you need more information to reach a well-supported conclusion. Finally, 3, balance with opinions. Reflect on opinions to gauge the subjective landscape around the topic so you can tailor your conclusions to address concerns, expectations, and values of those affected by the decision. Knowing whether your conclusion stands on facts, truth claims, or opinions ensures that you're not just confidently asserting your stance, but that you're prepared for counterarguments and ready to adapt to new information. This is critical thinking. Congratulations! I'm glad you made it to the end of this course because the world needs more critical thinkers. Like you. But with great thinking power comes great responsibility. So here's an ask. Can you please help spread critical thinking? I know it's not a simple request, but it's easier than it was before you had Gen AI to help. Why the ask? Because critical thinking isn't just about lighting up a few of our own brain bulbs. It's about kicking off a domino effect that flips casual thinkers into illuminated intellects. The goal of sharing is to set off a chain reaction that levels up our world one switched-on critical thinker at a time. So here are ways, one easy, one challenging, one moderate, and one demanding, that you can help with this chain reaction. 1. Easy. Share and tell. Share your favorite video from this course with someone specific who you think will appreciate the content. Some people are more into critical thinking than others. Focus on them. 2. Challenging. Educate and engage. Teach one young person to be a digital detective. Dive into the difference between being a skeptic, a cynic, and an idealist, and how Gen AI can be their ally, but only when armed with critical thinking. If they're not sure exactly what critical thinking is, take an extra 23 minutes to share PicPack. 3. Moderate. Converse and convey. Write a post about a new Gen AI capability. There are new ones all the time, and how the PicPack framework enhances the use of this new tool. And if you're really ambitious, 4. Demanding. Advocate and activate. Host a Good Thinkers Salon where you and your peers debate major topics in your field with the aid of the PicPack framework, Gen AI, and open minds. This involves not just sharing information, but facilitating deep critical discussion and possibly influencing thought in your professional circle. I hope you find pleasure and power using critical thinking with Gen AI to navigate the complexities of our world. If you have any questions or need help with this mission, please connect on LinkedIn or reach out to us at Applied Curiosity Lab. And if you choose to pass this torch of knowledge to others, know that with each mind you light up, you're not just spreading insight, you're reinforcing a collective wisdom that elevates us all.